Hi, everyone, and welcome to this meeting. I have invited Steve Adair today. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. So good to be with you once more, Cecilia.
Yeah, I love to have you here. We have met a lot of times this year.
Yes.
And that has been very beautiful.
Yeah, for me too.
Thank you. We were in 2 retreats this year in Gothenburg, in Sweden. And I choose the topic today in this conversation to tap into your source. It's a good topic when we talk with you, Steve, because you are really good at tapping into the source.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because when only last night, late last night, when I'd say to you, did we decide that we were going to do this call? And did you have a heading that you wanted us to speak to? And when I read tapping into your source, I had a little bit of a, oh, is that what we do? And it seemed to me a little bit like it was back to front or the wrong way around. And what I mean by that is, like, for so many years, I was a searcher. So it always looked like there was somewhere that I needed to get to with my well-being. And it wasn't just me, it was globally, you could see that everyone was doing the same. And it still in many ways looks like that. But what I saw was, like, if we look at of the source, the wellspring, fruitfulness, abundance, as being well-being, then every single one of us is naturally living in well-being. But we look at the well-being as being something that I have, it belongs to me, something I need to get, I need to have more of, or I should do. So we live in what I want to call the small brain, the small mind, where our beliefs, our learned patterns, our personal histories are all living. And that's not the source that I believe we are talking about here. Because before, you know, like when you're, I remember going to a holiday on Greece one of the times, and there's a place where you can go and actually, if you pour, there's a volcano. Sorry, it wasn't Greece, it was Lanzarote. And there's a place where you know, the volcano's there, and it's a live volcano, even though you don't see it, but there's a little geyser hole, they call it, and if you pour water into it, whoa, it shoots straight up. So it lets you know that earth actually has. So the wellspring was inside and coming up, and we could actually see it. So if you look at, I'm not saying that inside every single one of us is a volcano, but inside every single one of us is the source of everything. And it comes up into our consciousness, it comes up into our thoughts, and it allows us to see, where are we looking at with our well-being? Are we looking in our personal identity, or are we looking at we are the creator of our experiences? Now, we are both, but we have the free will to look at, am I getting lost in my habitual, my old thinking, my old patterns? Or am I seeing things new as original thought? Because that's how we're designed. Our true mindset, even to look at, how can I be more contented, more happy? The happiness that we once felt was those moments there to be cherished. And I honestly don't believe it's like, I remember when I was younger growing up in Scotland, and my cousin would come or the moments as an adult when we'd meet at my grand's and she'd say, "Oh, Gran, can we get the old photographs out?" And we would laugh our heads off. "Oh my God, look what we wore." And "Oh my God, look at your hair. How could you go out with your hair looking like that?" And so we were in so much laughter. And then with my other cousin, when I had a look up, we had a laugh, but not the same kind of laughter. And it kind of taught me, it's like we can look at the same experience and have different experiences again. So nothing is ever really solid in the way that we think it is. That's only the illusion of our thinking. It's creating the solidness. So that, when I was just gently reflecting this morning, was that if we look at that our source of our well-being is realizing that there is always the power of now, the power of the moment inside of us. And that moment brings fresh thought, brings fresh feeling, brings like the canvas, a black canvas of an artist not knowing what they want to draw. And then before they know it, they've created this thing coming alive. That's us too. And we have the ability within us, within our source of well-being, to write a new canvas every day, every moment, instead of listening to our past. Our past only defines us if we think it defines us. And even then, it doesn't tell me who you are. It just tells me what you're thinking and where you're misunderstanding the role of thought. But you know, the beautiful thing about it, Cecilia, is that you, me, and everyone who's listening to this, you're the only one it knows your source of well-being. You're the only one it feels the original feeling of it. And you and I had a little check-in today before we decided where we were going to do this, and you were telling me about you have a feeling about maybe going to have a look for a new puppy, and you don't know if you, but you're going to trust the feeling anyway and just go along. And that's a beautiful space to live in. And the feeling is like a little bit different, I think, from, oh, it's just a good feeling. Because the good feeling's that, oh, this is going to be great. But what I've noticed that when I have a feeling that I know that I've followed, I'm more in a calm peace of mind, even if I'm kicked into action. You know, I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were telling me they were out in the boat, and they were beginning to, a storm came up, and they thought, oh my goodness, we're going to be going towards that storm. How do we get out? And then before they knew it, the storm became quicker. So they were kind of, if we go, we're going to get crashed across these rocks. So they quickly just instinctively took themselves off in this direction and tucked themselves behind some other rocks, and the storm just went on past. And that really, like, oh my goodness, if someone would have said to you, you're going to go out, you're going to hit a storm, what would you do? Our first thing might be, well, gosh, I'd panic, or I don't know, I'd make sure. But when we're faced with life, that source, that instinct, that feeling which moves and guides us, minus the past or minus the future, only has the moment. We do things quicker than perhaps we would have if we bring thinking to it. Because the moment we bring thinking to it, it's the thinking of the past. And then before we know it, it brings in, yeah, but that didn't work. We might not hear it that way, but they'll have a feeling, because every thought has a feeling. Thought creates feeling. So for every thought we've had, there'll be a feeling. And then the brain, the small brain, groups them together. And then when something begins to not feel right in life, and we start thinking, and all of a sudden we're hoodwinked, we're blinkered by our past. Oh, see, it's not right, I shouldn't trust it. All we're feeling in that moment is our thinking of the past. Now, there's two ways I see as I look at that, that thinking isn't going to get me anywhere. But is it coming to let me know just to sit back a little bit? Or am I just feeling my thinking? So when we start looking at tapping into our source, it's tapping into our well-being. It's the spring of all knowledge, and it's yours. So when you tap into that, this is about you getting to know how you are showing up in the world. Because what I'm sharing, what you're sharing through all your webinars and all your guests, is that what's inside of you has been there since birth. It's not something that you have to learn, but it's something that perhaps because we've been looking in another direction for so long that we've forgotten who we are. And it's the same energy, you know. As I sit and I look out into my garden, I was doing a podcast the other day with a colleague, and there was at least 7 or 8 little butterflies flying around. It's just the back garden, and about 5 or 6 little birds. And then at one point, they were just all gone. And I just had this thought, it's like, it's still a garden. Regardless what comes to visit the garden, whether it's a bee or whatever, a butterfly or whatever it's coming in, it's still a garden. It still has well-being. It still has Mother Earth. It still has the intelligence of all things, that no matter what we plant into that soil, it will grow. Because that's the connection of two things coming together. And we have a connection to the same intelligence of Mother Earth that allows things to grow. And when that happens, we see that we are spiritual in nature. And what I mean by that is like spirit in you all, movement. Don't get lost in the spiritual means. I truly don't know. I used to think I knew what it meant, but I guess the nearest I could say is that it's formless in energy. So I know, like, when I look around my building and I see plugs, sockets, if I didn't know that we had wires running around the building, I'd be like, oh my God, it's magic. How did that happen? But I know as an adult that someone has fed wires and that's why it's doing it. But what about Mother Earth? What about Mother Nature? Is there electricity sockets in there? But we know there's an energy in there. It brings things alive. Like the trees, it grows 40, 50, 60, 100 feet more around the world. We are plugged into the same energy. We are the same energy in a different form. So their source is fulfilling their growth. Our source is fulfilling ours. And the only thing it gets in our way is our personal thinking. It tells us stories of the past and scares. And we innocently believe that because maybe things happened that we don't want to happen again. So I see that when my thinking gets a little bit lost, or I'm not seeing things as clearly as I would like to, I see that I need to get out of my way. And I don't know what that looks like. So there's no 5 steps to follow to feeling well. What I know is that there is a well-being of source that I can tap into in the form sense, but I am the source inside of me, inside of you, and all the listeners. It is the same connection to Mother Earth, where things are naturally, intuitively growing. And there was one little plant that I had bought, and for some reason, whatever part of the garden I put it in, it wasn't growing. And I was thinking, I looked up, is it in the right soil? Is it all this? And one of the days I said to Tony, I'm just going to move it over this part of the garden. And it always stayed really tiny. Now, this summer alone, it's grown this big. And sometimes, even though things are just familiar, and that's why we stay in the familiar, sometimes a simple movement of just looking at that, maybe this is true for me. Even if we don't believe it because we have so much thinking keeping us trapped in our overthinking, if we just have the thought, maybe this is true for me. Maybe I am a formless energy. And because it's formless, it can't be damaged or broken. And then if that is true, and if that helps me create all my experiences, then that means the power of thought is in the moment of now. Which means that all I have is not when you and I met at the time that we met. All we have is now. So anything that I said 2, 3 minutes, even a minute ago, even 5 seconds ago, is our past. And we don't have to, oh, what did Steve say, and mark it all down? We can just stay in the moment, knowing that we hear what we're meant to hear. And the reason why we hear it from a space inside was because it's true. We're hearing the truth of it. Then we see, well, if I'm feeling it, or I'm just feeling a little bit different, because we've programmed ourselves to, no, not getting it, I don't understand it, doesn't make sense. And what I found is that when I'm listening for things to always make sense, I'm bringing my old thinking of my past and looking through that lens to try to make sense of what I'm hearing. So then I have things that I thought were true. No, my thinking tells me that. So I just, the more I show up in life now, I know it's not about me knowing it all, but understanding who I am. So that means not that I have to let go of everything that I knew already, but I've just noticed the more that I'm bathing in the well-being of Source, and knowing that there'll be moments where it feels more beautiful than others. So it's not like getting hoodwinked that, well, we will live in it 365 days of the year and it'll all be 100% perfect. Consciousness goes up and down. Our feelings go up and down. So this isn't about, you know, because you're beautiful coming from Source all the time, that your life is going to be fantastic. But it gives us the opportunity to be in the driver's seat of all our experiences, so that we get to see something's off here. I don't know. It could simply be because I'm tired or I'm hungry, or I'm just going to trust this for this moment. And then for me, sometimes that's all it is. It's just at that moment. And then a couple of moments that I was sharing to you, that one of those times I came over to Sweden, I was coming on the call to say, no, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this time. And somewhere during the conversation, even though I'd said to the hosts, I'm not coming along, the feeling of Source, of well-being just flooded me. And out came the words, I'm coming. And I just knew that Steve needed to get out of the way and let happen whatever what needed to happen. That's more fun than, oh, I need to be in control. And perhaps maybe because we're in control, it's because we've been listening too much to someone else's stories, or maybe our own stories of how life needs to be. And if we just realize that our Source is like the rudder of the ship, which will guide us through any choppy waters of our mental health that we go through. And it will allow us to see more clearly, just like the boat experience I was telling you with, that if we need to quickly move to the side or forwards or backwards through life experiences, it allows us to be more aware of who we are in the moment.
Yeah, it's obvious that life lives through us, and that we can start it from now and just see where life leads us, where we be guided to. We don't know, and sometimes we agree with it, and sometimes we're not. We don't know why are life taking me this way. And maybe later on we know, but we don't always know. I don't know this Sunday if it's going to be a puppy or not, but something is guiding me to go, and I have to let life show me what that is about. And most people cannot trust that feeling, so we have to argue about it and question it all the time. Why is this happened? Why are I'm doing this? But I can see that if I let life leads me more and more, things turn out more easier for me, more simple. And we want to live more simple. We don't want to question everything all the time, because that's so heavy to live in that space. So to know that there is something deeper and stronger and bigger than personal Cecilia or personal Steve, that knows. Maybe I can't see it, my little mind, but just to be guided from the inside and trust that. So if you understand that the thoughts and the feelings, they are just moving and passing by, and I'm not that. I'm the one who's always here now. I never know what's happened. It's always new things coming.
That's the beautiful thing about trusting, is that if we look back through our life and we see that none of us, I believe truly, how we thought life was going to be, it's turned out exactly how we thought life would be. But yet we showed up and did the best that we could at that time anyway. And we're always doing the best that we can, giving on the level of consciousness that we're playing with at that moment. So for me, it's like when people are stressed, they don't see life as easy. They see more of what they don't want. So we know that. That's a given for everyone. But what they're really not seeing is their well-being, their common sense. But if you look within, if you look beyond your thinking, we begin to see there's no body. There's more of a space beyond who we are. And that space is where we would say wisdom resides. And there is wisdom in the system. We see it in our gardens and nature. We are the same wisdom. And Sid Banks would say, wisdom is the purity of thought, which means that at every moment we have purity of thought flowing through us. And that purity of thought brings everything that we need in the moment. And if we trust that and I don't mean that it brings a new car, it brings a new, but it brings every sense of well-being in that moment. And some of those things that we thought we wanted or we needed to have just fade away. Because it's not the ego we're talking about. It's not the small brain. We're talking about the big mind. We're talking about the intelligence of who we are. The intelligence that has allowed us to come from a seed to grow in our mother's womb, to have birth, and then to grow into the adults that we are. That shows that there's a wisdom. It's way beyond anything that, yeah, we can scientifically look at it, but it's still incredible that sperm and an egg comes together and life is created. That's how form is created. It's like the mystical nature of life creates life. And then we look outside. And then we think we know better than what's out there. Or we take things in. It looks like, I can remember how you said it, lifestyles or something, but it looks like everything outside of me determines who I am. I innocently used to think that, but I now see that it doesn't. And just like that example I gave before, with looking with two different cousins at the same photographs having two different reactions. So those photographs, something outside of me determined how I think and feel, then wouldn't they have the same reaction? So it just shows in the moment. And then we laughed at different photographs that we didn't with my other cousin. So it just shows it really is the moment that something's happening, that it has that feeling of well-being rather than a mindset. A mindset seems to close things down of how things need to be in form. But the beautiful mindset of clarity, of hope, they're more, I think, innate, more inbuilt. But maybe as a child, we wouldn't call it as like hope or these kind of things that we do as adults. And as adults, we define, if I say, like if we were having a group here and I was to say, okay, I want everybody to write down what hope means to them, then we would have some similar, but so many different too. So it just shows that we're all having our own experience of life. So when I look to others to help me understand, yes, they can be beautiful guides, but I am the only one. It helps me to understand exactly who I am. Not Steve, but yet the feeling it's life in me, the well-being, the source that's life in me. And I know that that is pure in its nature. And I think in our psychology, we don't think that we're pure in nature. Oh, no, you see, I've had this experience and it's made me. And this isn't about denying that you've had those experiences, but it's saying that something, regardless of what you've been through, has got you through. And it's that one thing, to me, it's the source of who you are. It has that, I think it was Dr. Bill Pettit, it says it's the pilot light of hope. And I always remember when growing up, and my gran had this boiler, and it was a massive big thing, but it had a little circle at the bottom left, and you could look in to see the pilot light was on. And where she lived was there was fields and hills behind her. So if there was a big storm, sometimes it would blow the pilot light out. So you go, Stephen, go and look to see the pilot light, and the excitement of getting the stool or getting the ladders and going up. Oh yeah, the pilot light's on, Gran. And it was like, that's the feeling of knowing that my pilot light can never be blown out. Knowing that no one's pilot light, no matter what they have been through, is blown out. It may look like it's flickering sometimes, but the hope of who we are will always guide us through. And I don't mean pay attention to who you think you are, because the moment you think you know who you are, you're wrong. You're defining yourself. And I've let go of that. So when I go on calls and people say to me, can you just tell people who you are, Steve, and what you do? And I'm like, oh, who am I right now then? How am I going to express who I am right now? And if that's true, that we all do that, we all meet different people, and we're all different kind of energies to different people. And we see that within families. Like sometimes we get back into our families and we play the roles that we played growing up with our siblings. And it's just like, I'm not that young child anymore. So why am I still? Because that's what the intellect, that's what the ego does. It only has information of what once happened. It doesn't have anything new. So when we tap into our source of our well-being, it's thinking that our small mind is the part that does all the changes. And it can be really helpful to, if it feels right to go for a walk, then yeah, tap into that, go for a walk. If it feels right to go and see a puppy, go and see a puppy. If it feels right to then go and do that. But the real well-being or source of well-being that we are tapping into is bringing us life. Moment to moment. And there was something, and if I may, I was looking at Sydney Banks' book this morning, The Missing Link, Reflections of Philosophy and Spirit. And if I can read these little bits out, because it really came to me this morning. And, you know, I've thought about the power of now and the power of moment many a time, but when I was feeling it this morning, it felt different. And that's what I'm pointing to here too. Oh, I'm not doing that because I've done that before. And when we go and look at something and we're not looking to learn, just to perhaps this is true, then I think these close down and the heart opens more. So living in the now, through the centuries, the wise has told us to live in the now. This is what I say to you. The past is a ghost that cannot be held in the palm of your hand. The future cannot be grasped, no matter how desirable or enticing it may appear. Nor can the present be held, no matter how beautiful or exciting. Begin the process of nourishing the soul by living in the now. Forget the past and the future and just be. And you will surely be rewarded by living in the now.
Yeah, it opens up for so many possibility to start from now. But I also want to share something when we met in the retreat we have, and when we slow down and come back to the source of who we are. We were sitting in the room, and some in the room was sharing something, a story, a life story that was problematic for her. And then the feeling in the room gets very deep, and all the people who were sitting there were feeling something inside themselves. I could see that, and then I also suddenly I just started to cry, and I didn't see that come. I don't know where. It was not something Cecilia had planned. It was not from my head. It just came from my heart, and it was so deep feeling in the room that I felt that, yes, it's true. We are really connected. This is the source, and I've never felt that so strongly before, like I did there. And it was not only me. It was many of the people in the room who told when we came out, wow. And I can't remember her story. I can't remember. It doesn't matter, the story, because it wasn't about the story.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a story by myself. I didn't have a story. But something opened up for me, and my tears just fall.
So isn't that beautiful what you just shared? That if it's the time that I think it was, and I have to say think, because I'm not in that moment of when it happened, but if it's the time that I think it was, that person, as they were sharing, actually there's two things that comes to mind. There was one where the person was sharing where perhaps they weren't seeing something clear, but even though they weren't seeing something clear, they were aware of resting in a beautiful feeling. And what that really was showing was really the form and formless together beautifully, that we could be thinking and thinking and thinking, but still resting in a well-being. Whether, I think at times we have told ourselves that I either have to be one or the other. And no, we're always well-being. And sometimes we're overthinkers, but we'll always be well-being. And then the other one that I was thinking about was that when the lady was sharing that she was in such a beautiful feeling. And then she started talking to someone in the break. And she was just aware of talking herself out of the feeling, because talking about where she wasn't happy in work. And it was like, oh my goodness, why am I doing this to myself? But how that kind of thinking was kind of familiar. And it just showed that when you start having that kind of thinking, it's going to have feelings to come with it. And that's what they felt in that moment, was like, oh my goodness, how have I just gone in a split second from feeling really calm and really beautiful feelings to, oh, I hate my work. Just like that, because I am the thinker. So I we never know how we're going to see the moments of beauty it lives inside of us. And that's what those moments showed me on there too. Because even though, like I think I'd shared to you as a group, even though I sit there, I'm not listening for the story. I'm listening for the health of who we are. And when you listen for someone's health, it will show itself. And the reason why it will show itself, it's because who they are. And consciousness dance amongst us. It moves amongst us. And we all start lighting up. I don't mean as in we glow, but we all start dropping our overthinking. So it's not like we have to get anything new. It's just our thinking stops. And I don't mean fully, but slows down. And then that true well-being of who we are comes forth. And we're resting more in that because we're not chattering. And then it's what you beautifully say, is we all feel it together because it's who we are. And that's the best teacher, that feeling. Because that woke everybody up. Like, and who would have known, is what you said. It's like, I wasn't sad, so why was I crying? It was just like, and I think the reason why was because you were touched by innocence, you were touched by the beauty, you were touched by the wisdom, you were touched by whatever kind of words we try to make up. You can't describe the feeling, but yet it's a knowing that you know this is who you are. And then when you look through that beautiful feeling, then you get to create who the illusion of Cecilia is, minus your overthinking, minus your, oh, I don't like this about me, and I don't like that about. And then when you see that, when you are overthinking, you see it quicker, because you're aware, oh, I'm not actually my well-being here. I'm just in my mind chatter. I'm just doing what I used to always do. That doesn't help me. And that's what I love seeing, that the more we bathe in the wellness of our well-being, that's a great advantage point to be in. Because once you know that, that was nothing to do with me then. It was everything to do about you. And then that was nothing to do with anybody else. It was everything to do about them. But what happens is, I think I told the metaphor of the time that I went to America the first time, and I was with the jet lag, and I was walking down the street, and all of a sudden, which it looked really light, and it got dark around this area, and I was like, okay, this jet lag is really kicking in. And our friend had said, okay, step back a bit. And when we stepped back, this bush started, the shrub started lightening up again. I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing things. And he started laughing again. He says, they're fireflies. And I says, well, what's fireflies? And he says, the little bodies light up at night. But one lights up first, and then the other light up. So when we have the courage to be in our well-being and know that's who we are, other people will light up because they know that's who they are. And we'll also not get into the stories of our yesteryears. So someone can speak to you and you can let them be heard, but you don't have to get into their story. You can still rest in your well-being, knowing that it's true for them too. So that this isn't 5 steps to tapping into your source. This is actually seeing that you are the source. You are the spring of well-being. You are free from all psychological numbness in this well-being. And it's giving you the feeling of life every moment to moment. And perhaps you have forgotten that at times. And perhaps you might forget it again. But it is always a given that you are the source of well-being. So it doesn't matter if you forget sometimes. It's still going to guide you, nourish you, love you anyway.
And that moments when things touch you, you don't know when that's coming. It's come suddenly. I went to a concert in the church last weekend, and they were so authentic and they were so good. They played and sing. It was amazing. And everyone in the church was just, wow, this is so, oh, they are stars here. And it came so from heart. It was so authentic and beautiful, everything. And I just wanted to have more. Give me more, please. Don't stop. This is wow. And I feel that everyone in that church got that feeling. Almost everyone got that feeling, because it's like when someone is coming from that place in that moment, when they just are themselves, you feel it. And that's so beautiful to be in a space like that, when it's no perfect. They were talking to the audience, and it wasn't them and we, it was us. Us together. We're having these moments together. They were asking us, how do you like this, or what do you think about this? This is the quiz. They ask things about the songs, and together we have this. So it wasn't that perfect. It was very for the whole family. My little granddaughter, she's 3 years old. She just, oh, there was a girl singing Molly, and she just spoken about her the last days. Molly, 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 because she loved when she sang. It was very beautiful. And so you got the feeling and the energy in the room.
Yeah.
You recognize I recognize the nice feeling. So I go with that. And if I feel that this is just a lot of stories, and this is just, I can't feel this feeling here, maybe I walk from that. So it's a guiding.
Yeah.
To know where to stay or to go.
Yeah. And also it allows us to not take our thinking so seriously. Because in that moment, like when you're in that piece of music or someone's voice, there is no thinking. You might be like, wow, but there's no like, I'm saying wow because I really like this, and people you're just in the moment with that. And that's what happened in on the retreat. It's like we were just in the moment. We all lit up in the moment. It sounds like in that church, you all lit up in those moments. So what's beautiful about pointing this out is this goes back to, again, this is not something that we need to learn, but when we look towards a positive or good feeling, we're in our source of well-being then. We're not questioning life or our identity. We're just trusting that moment that we're in. And then to hear that your granddaughter having a very different experience where Molly was her thing, it was like, and that's the beauty of it. It's like, oh wow, just seeing that something within hearing this voice lit her up. So she was in her well-being at that moment, not because Molly sung that just for her, but Molly would have been in her well-being singing it. Because it's interesting that when you speak to a lot of singers and so on, and you say to them, do you get nervous before you go on stage? Gosh, yes, I get really nervous. Yet the person who's singing their heart out to you, there is no nerves there. There is nothing. And that's what we feel, that they're just at one with the music, which gives us the permission to grant the same to ourselves. So the feeling of wisdom is everywhere. It's not just in one place. It is everywhere.
And when you love to do things, everyone feels it. And I can see that the whole family, they love to sing and play music, and that's what they bring out.
It's beautiful.
It reminds me to look at things that lift up my spirit. Follow the feeling.
I have nothing more to say. It's
I can only hear my dog now. He has nothing to say either. So that's beautiful to stay with that feeling then, Steve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. As always, it's been a pleasure.
I feel the same. Thank you.